I'm Dan Powell. I'm the managing attorney at Minc Law. I'm going to talk to you today about what to expect in anticipation of your consultation with a Minc Law attorney. The first question that I typically ask the client and want to hear about is, how is this affecting them? What sort of harm is this causing? Is the harm quantifiable in some economic sense? Have they lost wages, lost revenue? Or is the harm purely reputational? Lost associations? Is the harm actual, or is it presumed? All those questions are relevant to a proper legal analysis. In terms of questions that you should ask your attorney, of course, obvious ones are, what do you expect this to cost? How long will it take? And what are the chances of success? None of those questions can be answered with, of course, any exactness. I often tell clients I advocate for decisions, I argue for decisions, but I don't make decisions. Oftentimes, us achieving our goals are dependent on some third party, whether it is the adverse party themselves, whether it's an online platform, or whether it's a court of law, making a decision to give us the relief that we want. That doesn't mean, with all these variables, that you and the attorney can't have a very informed conversation in terms of what past experiences we've had with this particular situation. Just understand that, at least in our particular niche, this is much more an art form than a science. There's no precision that really can be offered in the vast majority of the matters. But what we can do is advise you on what we've done in the past and what sort of success that we have had in the past. Personally, I don't care one bit how you dress, how you appear. Don't consider it like you're showing up in court. At the same time, the most important thing is I really would prefer, when doing a consultation, especially by video, that someone be in a stable place. Often speak to people and they're on their phone, in their car, sometimes driving or walking, and the camera's moving all over the place. That can be very distracting. So if you can be in a stable location where you have decent lighting so that, of course, we can see each other well, that's most ideal. Oftentimes clients want a third party, someone for support on the consult with them. That can be their parent, that can be their spouse, it can be a friend. That would call into question, however, the attorney-client confidentiality of the consult. I always let the client know that, and it's their choice whether the third party is there. But whenever a third party is present during a conversation with an attorney and the attorney's client, then under the most technical reading of the rules, the attorney-client privilege would be waived. Well, you never want to waive attorney-client privilege. There are some rules that are fairly strict on it, saying that you can't selectively waive attorney-client privilege, meaning I want to preserve it for one communication or one conversation, but not for another. If you waive it, you waive it, and it can be kind of harsh in that respect. It doesn't have to be a knowing waiver. You can waive attorney-client privilege without signing some form, without giving explicit consent, but simply being reckless with your communications. Attorney-client privilege is a very, very important aspect of our profession, of course. It means that when someone sends me a subpoena or something else to try and compel me to tell them what my client spoke to me about, I can tell them to get lost. It's something that you want to protect. You want to be able to tell your attorney things that the general public or any other fact finder might not know, and allow the attorney to make judgments in terms of how that's relevant to the case and whether it actually needs to be disclosed or not. The most vital part of preparation for a consultation is organization, making sure that whatever is provided is organized in a sensible manner so that I can efficiently prepare for the consult in the time slot allotted. There's no uniform way to organize whatever I need to look at. It can vary from case to case. The amount of information I need to look at can vary from case to case. The most important aspect of that is just working closely with our intake specialists. This is their job, to make sure the consults are prepared, but they can't do it without the help of the potential client. We spend a lot of time in developing our intake pipeline, assuming the client takes the intake process seriously and actively participates in it. Then the intake team actually can do most of the work, or at least provide the necessary guidance that the client can properly prepare for the consult. People that try and rush through the intake process and bulldoze straight to an attorney, those tend not to be productive consults, because again, we've built out our consult pipeline, we built out our process in order to make these consults efficient and productive as best as possible. So the people that call up and say, I don't want to answer these questions, I want to go straight to an attorney, those tend to be the least productive consults. Most of the time that they've purchased with me is spent on setting those expectations or realigning those expectations where they could have been before the consult even started. The important part about doing a legal consult, especially in our niche, is understanding what's possible. A lot of people call us and they're under extreme amounts of duress and they need relief immediately. It's my job during the consult to, first, of course, understand the situation, but very important to have a cool, calm, and collected conversation with the potential client, not one in which they're going to make a decision while they're in a state of duress, but rather make an informed decision once they've learned what the actual possibilities are. Sometimes those possibilities are through a formal legal process. Other times those possibilities are through some alternative methods that we have developed over the years in order to solve some very difficult problems that people can encounter online.